Well, thank you all for joining us today in breakout room number 8 with the one and only Mr. James Allen from the Kentucky Department of Education's digital learning team. He is the library lead for the state of Kentucky, and we are pumped and excited to have him here today to share with us some resources around the standards for library media. And if you have questions, please make sure you put them in the chat, or I'm sure James would love it if you just unmuted and asked any questions. But Mr. Allen, I'm just going to let you take it away.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Are we good? Can everybody see it?
Looks good.
All right, so if you were not aware, Kentucky has not had academic standards for library media ever until this past May. It was actually May the 4th or 5th, I think, when they were fully adopted. First, I want to thank the people that were involved in writing these standards. They were school librarians from around the state. We had a few people from higher ed join us also. These slides are also, I think I put them on the resource page in case you need to get back to them. There's a few links that are important. I'm going to talk about a little bit later that you might want to check out. And then this was our vision for the writing team of the standards: to choose appropriate information tools and use them ethically, for students to be able to practice digital citizenship, develop an appreciation for knowledge and learning. This was a big one, for students to read for pleasure, learning, and personal and emotional growth. Discover and explore inquiry-driven critical thinking research, evaluate information for credibility and usefulness, ask questions to guide decision-making, cultivate digital fluency skills necessary for lifelong learning, and make cross-curricular connections. So in this vision, you're not going to see a lot of what you might stereotypically think of the library world. Like, we're not, it's not our vision for every student to memorize the decimal system or to know exactly where every book should go in the library, but more it's, this probably is overused, 21st century skills is overused, but it's really more about information and knowing how to navigate information and find what you need, and kind of keeping reading as a center of that. These common beliefs are important. We actually based our Kentucky Academic Standards for Library Media on the national standards that come from the American Association of School Librarians. And these common beliefs are part of those standards, which we kind of just copy and pasted right into our own Kentucky Academic Standards. So the school library is a unique and essential part of the learning community. Qualified school librarians lead effective school libraries. Learners should be prepared for college, career, and life. Number 4, I kind of put in bold because it's really important. Reading is the core personal and academic competency. 5 is intellectual freedom is every learner's right. And last one is information technologies must be appropriately integrated and equitably available. It's a mouthful. So before I kind of show you some of the standards and what they look like, these are kind of some of the frequently asked questions that I get asked. I get asked, are these standards required? So there's kind of a big R and little r in terms of requirement. The library media standards are not required, but if you have a school library program, these are the standards you must use. So in a way, they are required because every public school in Kentucky has a school library and a school library program. They may not have a full-time school librarian, but 75% of our schools do. So even if it's a school that has a part-time person, these are the standards that need to be used in that program. So I relate them most closely to the computer science standards. So not every school must have computer science, but if they do, the computer science standards that we have are the ones that have to be used. In comparison to like our technology standards, which I would call the big R, they have a graduation requirement. There's a little bit more that goes into those. So a little bit kind of on different sides. And also to remember, I get this question a bunch. I think people sometimes still get confused standards and curriculum. The standards are kind of what we want kids to be able to know and do. They're not how we get to that point. So the curriculum is the how, the standards are the kind of that goal that we want students to be able to achieve. And then I've also had quite a few questions about reading. reading does not show up in the standards. Like if you do a keyword search for reading, it shows up, but it's not in every part of the standards. So back to that curriculum question that I get, you could tie reading into every single part of in every part of the library standards if you wanted to. You could also tie in some technology, some computer science, some social studies, some ELA, some science. But the reading is part of that common belief. So it's kind of something we just know that reading is part of these library standards all throughout. And I'm assuming, Bree, you might be an administrator since you're on this Principals EdCamp. If you have time for nothing else from this session, click on this link. It's a one-pager kind of thing for school administrators. I'm actually going to click on it and open it up. And I'm not going to read it to you, but I will open it up and show it to you. It is basically a great way to have a conversation with your school librarian and making sure that these standards are part of your program. And going through these bullets will just kind of give you an idea, if you don't have one already, of what a kind of a modern school library should be and what it should look like. So if you have time, click on that link. And I'll put that in the chat in just a minute, just in case you don't have these slides from the resource page. But that one is really important. The standard site from AASL is also really good. They have some great things in there that you can go over. There's messaging for parents. There's messaging for your school librarian. So the standards, we took the 6 shared foundations: the inquire, include, collaborate, curate, explore, and engage. We have all 6 of those in our Kentucky Academic Standards. And for each one of those, we repeat these domains: think, create, share, and grow. So I'll show you what these look like in terms of the identifiers. So first you have the grade band. So it's either high school, middle school, intermediate, or primary. And then the concept are those shared foundations I just read to you: inquire, include, collaborate, curate, explore, and engage. And then the standards repeat. And it's really the standard plus the learning priority that kind of make a complete sentence. So it'll make a little more sense when I show you in just a second. And then what we added to the national standards is the performance indicator. And this is what makes it appropriate for each grade level. The national standards are not graded. They're just a general K through 12 kind of framework. They don't go down into grade levels, but we added language that kind of breaks this down for each of the grade levels. So I'm not going to read all of this out loud, but here's inquire: build new knowledge by inquiring, thinking critically, identifying problems, and developing strategies for solving problems. So I would say if you just read that statement out in the wild and didn't realize you were reading library standards, you might not connect that to library. Just with that off the top of your head, you might not think that this is what these standards look like, but they are really more about inquiry and learning and being able to navigate information. And here you can see those 4 domains. So just for example, think: learners ask questions rooted in prior knowledge and curiosity. And then create: learners strive to make meaning and create new knowledge using an inquiry process. Share: learners share design solutions and evidence with peers and authentic audiences. Grow: learners make personal connections by engaging in an iterative inquiry process and reflecting on their learning. So you might feel like as you go through these that they kind of repeat, and they do. The think, create, share, and grow do repeat, but you kind of have to look at it through the lens of that shared foundation in the top. So that inquire, include, collaborate, curate, explore, engage. And then those are the 6 things there. And then an awesome resource that is on this slide, these slides here, is there's a crosswalk. So our technology standards, our Kentucky Academic Standards for Technology, are based on the ISTE standards, which are National Technology Standards. And this crosswalk already exists that ties together our library media standards with the technology standards. So you can see over here on the left, you see learner, and then those are the standards that we based ours on, and that they also have standards for the school librarian and standards for the school library program already on this document. So it's about 7 or 8 pages, but it's a great way to kind of tie together what may already be going on in your school. And that's a question I get sometimes too. Is this just a checklist of what kids need to do? It is definitely not a checklist. And the library is kind of a unique area of the school. You see all of the students, you see them usually for multiple years in a row. So I never tell someone you must, I don't know, I don't want to say check off these standards. It's not like you have to get to every single one of these with every student every single year. And I would also say they're collaborative. I don't think the school librarian is the only person in the school who are kind of getting to these standards. Kids are already doing these things in their regular content area classrooms. So tying those together, making collaboration with classroom teachers easier is a real thing. Here is what, if you go to our standards page on the KDE website, this is just what it looks like. You can see our Kentucky Academic Standards for Library Media there with the link. And then always, if you have any questions, you can email me and let me know if you need any help with anything. I'm going to show you one more site that I put together for your school librarian. I've shared this multiple times with them, but if you ever feel like you need to, you can reach out to me and I'll share it with them. I put together some just general resources that are good for a school librarian, especially if they're new. Obviously the standards will be really important. The specialist framework that we have at KDE for evaluations. KYL chat is a Twitter chat that we have twice a month. It's on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month. We do that for school librarians in the state, all different kinds of topics. People interact and answer questions that we share on those nights. CASEL is our Kentucky Association of School Librarians, tons of resources on their site. We also have the UK listserv that provides email listservs for so many different areas. There is one specifically for school librarians. KYVL, if you did not know already, this year is being reimbursed by KDE and also for next school year, the 22-23 school year. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out to me. We have the Bluegrass Award, which is a literary award for books that is kind of a collaboration between school librarians, and our students actually vote on the books for who gets those awards. And then I have a few others. Another one I want to really point out is School Library Connection. This is provided through the help of KET for this school year. It is professional development and learning for your school librarian. It's devoted primarily just for school librarians. And I can share the username and password if you reach out to me if you need that. They have tons of articles, webinars, and then there's even self-paced workshops that you can work through and get a certificate of completion at the end if anybody is missing, PD hours. What I really want to show you on this website, though, is up at the top. There's one that says standards, and these are all resources related to our new standards. So I have a blank progression chart that if I was still in the school library at the school level, I would use this just for my own planning purposes, just to see what it looks like from each grade level. My last school was K-12, so this would have been really helpful. This collaborative progression chart is one that I've used in quite a few sessions with school librarians, and they've added ideas on how to meet the standards. So I'm going to click on one of those just to show you what it looks like. So we have the standard up here. This one's think and inquire, build new knowledge by inquiring, thinking critically, etc. And then learners display curiosity initiative by recalling prior and background knowledge as context for new meaning. And then under each grade level, we have the indicator that we wrote specifically for those grade levels. And a lot of those will look very similar. It's just a little bit of language change, like with prompting, with guidance, with support independently, hopefully for 9-12. But those are there for you, and people have filled in some ideas on how to meet those standards. And then I have a spreadsheet version, if that would be helpful to you. There's that crosswalk that I showed you earlier. This is a great document, this AASL position statement. It talks about how reading is incorporated into the standards and the way reading kind of pops out for each of those 6 shared foundations that we talked about. The KYVL is putting together, it's kind of a project to tie together K-12 to post-secondaries in terms of information literacy. And we're kind of tying together our standards with the standards that you have in that kind of collegiate atmosphere. That's an ongoing work, but here's a link here for it if you need to use that. I also included Wyoming's standards resources in Arkansas. They both also use the national standards for their library media standards, and they just have some additional resources that might help you kind of like pull out what that looks like at each of the grade levels. You can see here the Arkansas and what it looks like at the end of grade 2, grade 5, grade 8. And that's kind of the end of that standards page. Do you have any questions for me? That was a lot of talking all at once. Crickets. That's a good sign, right?
That's right. I mean,
Jeff and Laura, do you have any questions?
I will say, I like the website.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I like the freedom stuff. Yeah, I mean, I
Also have some stuff here for censorship. There's some news sites for kids. I just kind of put together a list. This diverse books section I'm really kind of proud of. I feel like when you just go out there and do a Google search, it kind of takes a while to figure out to, pull out the best resources. I kind of made a list in terms of improving your library collection in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion. There are a ton of lists here. I got individual book suggestions from some of my friends on Twitter. I put those here. And you can see there's quite a few, some more lists of lists, but that's there for you also on this site.
I just love that the site's just chock full of resources. It's like your one-stop shop. So
I know
I share that out with a lot of your librarians across the state. So just,
yeah,
that's awesome.
I put it together. I know when I came on board with KDE, you kind of showed me your website that you have for the digital learning coaches. I kind of just think of it in the lens of what I wish I had as a new school librarian. Like, I know it's every year we have new people come on board it's easy to kind of get into this mindset of, oh, people already know that, but we have new people all the time. And it's just a kind of a warehouse of things I wish I had known all at the beginning.
I love that you say that because, so many times those of us who've been around for a while, we won't say old, but those of us who are a little bit more of a veteran, we tend to forget what we have learned over the years. And we've got newbies that come on, every day, every year, and having those resources available so that they can get acclimated, super, super helpful.
And helpful for those veterans that, have been in the trenches for so long. Sometimes it's nice to poke your head up and be like, what's going on out there? What are these resources available for new folks?
And depending on where you are, like I started my librarian career in Oldham County, which has, I don't know exact number, 17, 18 schools. We all met monthly as school librarians. So I never felt like out of the loop. Like all of those people kind of helped fill me in, but I know we have a lot of schools out there where people don't get to meet like that, or they don't have that many schools in their district. They're a little bit more on an island compared to what I experienced as a new school librarian. So I feel a little guilty. Like I didn't join our state association it took me forever. I'd already been a librarian for 10 years before I joined our Kentucky Association for School Librarians. I wish I had done it a lot sooner. I didn't put the pieces together. My fellow Oldham County librarians were just too helpful. They didn't leave me lacking for any information. So, but it's different when you kind of make connections across the state though.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. It's like so many times we get into our own little world and we do things. And I actually heard some DLC saying this yesterday. We get into our own world and we're doing things our way and we just learn from each other internally. And then, like you said, you pop your head into like whether it's the library world or the digital learning coach world, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I never thought about it that way. Or, oh my gosh, y'all are doing that. We are behind, but we're doing this and we're doing this really
Yeah.
well. So it's just awesome to be able to have those networks and, to collaborate with the people in adjoining districts and across the state. So
My
Yeah.
goal is to rope in more of our Jefferson County friends, because they are like, they're in their own kind of little microcosm. Like they have over 100 school librarians just in their district. So they have tons of resources internally. So it's a little bit trickier to get them to join our state conversation. But
Well, and think about what everyone else can learn from them is,
yeah, that's what I'm like, come join us and
Well,
share what
share
you're
the
doing.
wealth.
and vice versa. I had in the same conversation that I was having yesterday, I had a couple of people from a really large district, and then I had some from like a couple of the tiniest districts in the state. And what they don't understand is that they all learned something from each other. Just again, it goes back to the fact that we get into our own little, our own little world, and we forget that, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, we're huge. And I didn't think about, that from a small district perspective or vice versa. And so I'll tell you what the question was. It's like, hey, does the state just provide a handbook for digital learning coaches, like what we should do each day and each month? Like, no, we don't. And that's because there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no, like, if I made a handbook per se for, let's say for Jefferson County, it wouldn't be applicable for Fulton. And if
Or
I made one
eminence.
yeah, or Eminence, or if I made one for Eminence, like they would laugh if I handed that and said, hey, you need to collaborate with all your teachers K through 12. There's no way they can do that. One person. And so it's just, it's neat to learn and to really have our eyes open from the different perspectives and the different applications. So whether that's your library media standards, or if it's, you have a digital learning coach who's working with, teachers and buildings and districts, or you're working with STLP, all of these things are going to look and have a different flavor
Yeah.
based on the size of your building and district and based on the geography. Because until you've worked in every region of our state, you don't understand how different our state is, because of opportunities.
That was part of the where, this session's on the standards. That was kind of my favorite part, was getting all those people together and talking from all across the state. It wasn't just, one little group. It was everybody kind of getting together. And I hate to say anything has been good about this pandemic, but we were able to I feel like we were able to do a better job on the standards because we met remotely during the pandemic to get to the finish line on these standards. And I think it really helped connect some of these people where it's expensive to bring all those people together to meet in Frankfurt, but by meeting virtually, I think we had a lot more conversations than we would have otherwise.
That was, and I got to lead the technology standards, and that's exactly whenever we first met. That was the one thing that I pushed back on. I'm like, we're not meeting in person. We're going to do this virtually. And that was pre-pandemic. And I said, we could absolutely do this without all having to drive from all corners of the state to drive into Frankfurt. Like if we're writing technology standards, we should be using technology.
I was probably able to vampire suck more of their time virtually than I would have been if we were having to meet in person.
But they met collaboratively without me. The strands and the grade bands would meet, and it was just awesome. So same thing with like your library standards and your tech standards is like, it's just, they're written so well. So just super proud of the writing teams with both sets of standards that, they did a wonderful job.
Well, that is my spiel. I guess you can maybe stop the recording if you want.
Absolutely. And, pretty close to
Oh yeah, I
most of the
forgot
time.
we were recorded. They probably didn't want to hear all that stuff I had to say.
Hey, that was all. That
We
was all
might want to have a
productive.
disclaimer on there and just like, edit out the last 5 minutes.
No, that's good to hear. It's good to hear.
On behalf of P3 EdCamp, James Allen, thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
Great job. I'm going to stop the recording.
I need to